been married 46 years next week. Art had had a problem with alcohol, had been to rehab. Later on, I developed a problem with alcohol. I had breast cancer. Art had quit 2 jobs and started his own business, and that was not doing well.
Our situation together was continued to erode.
I had an event in my life. My husband had an affair and did not want to be married anymore. That event kicked me, and so I was not wanting to live. And I ended up here.
I had gotten to a point of crisis within my own family with a family member who struggled with some dependency issues. It not only impacted the quality of life, it impacted us financially. So we became a family that walked around on broken glass.
And I met my husband at age 16. We were married at 19, so we started our family very early. I noticed that in my husband's behavior there were anger and rage, but it was very familiar to me, so I never actually stepped out to get help. Our family was very broken. We looked good on the outside, but there was a lot of trauma on the inside.
My husband Larry and I raised 4 children. They're grown now and have given us grandchildren. There was a lot of dependence and trusting the Lord during those years as we were raising them. And on December 15th, 2010, my husband Larry had a grand mal seizure. I did not think it would end that way. But he was in the hospital in intensive care for 5 days, and he passed away on December 20th, 2010. And it was very traumatic for me. So I went back to work after the first of the year, and I just buried myself in the work and in the ministry. And I never had ever really cried.
I grew up dealing a lot with anxiety and depression, but I lived in a household that was very religious and didn't see mental illness as an actual illness, but more something that needed to be shunned and shamed and just put away and prayed over. And the older I got, the more I realized that it's okay to not be okay, and to be able to find that hope and connect with people and know that there is help whenever you're in those dark places.
I started coming about 1.5 years ago, and because I was really struggling with just sexual abuse trauma that I'd gone through, just not coping well with it, and I just really struggled making it through basic daily things. And with the help of my therapist here, that has changed. I went from somebody who was terrified of men in general, never could have a really healthy relationship or a stable relationship, to someone who has now been happily married for 2 months, even though I'm still having to do a lot of work with my husband, with my therapist.
My counselor was able to help me break down some walls that I had built to protect myself, telling myself I was okay. Just the compassion and the diligence from the counselors meant so much to me.
I can remember the first time that I came here, I didn't want to come through the doors. I mean, I really didn't want to walk in here, but I had made the commitment that this is what I needed to do for myself and for my children. And what I found was people that I could trust. And I think it was that trust in an untrusting situation, so many variables that you couldn't control, to come into a place where you could feel trust, begin to plant that seed of hope.
I was lost and found myself again here. Didn't know who I was anymore, and I've regained pieces of myself through 4 years of counseling, and those pieces I'm starting to feel like I did when I was 20. Through self-awareness and through forgiveness, letting things go, and just let you say, okay, that piece is gone, and I can go back to me.
It's a lot to have to face your biggest fears. It seems easier to just kind of shove them to the side and just make it through. Counseling is really hard, admittedly. It is the hardest thing I've ever done, but it is also the most rewarding thing that I've ever done. To be able to reclaim your life back and to no longer feel like a victim or feel controlled by your past or your anxiety or fears or whatever it is worth it.
There's always a little bit of anxiety and fear that comes in whenever you go, because you have to be so vulnerable and open yourself up. But everyone at the Refuge Center, I've always been such a loving and welcoming place.
We moved to Tennessee after my husband lost a job, and so we all began counseling, all four of us, which I'm very grateful that we were all four able to start counseling because of the way that the Refuge Center has their financial sliding scale set up. That made it possible for our family to receive the help that we needed. Once we were healed individually, then we were able to come back together, and they walked us through that process of bringing us back together as a family unit.
I think when I came in, I was completely feeling like things were over. I felt like things were over. At that point, my parents were separated, and so I felt things were over, and I was going to have to learn how to live this way, learn to, I'd thought of things of not being able to walk down the aisle with my father. So, this created a place where it made space for us to heal, and it made a place where I was able to not only walk down the aisle with my father at my wedding, but now he plays with my grandbabies and my children. And it's so special to be able to have that and see that.
Here at the Refuge Center, they were concerned about me first. It wasn't a thing where I was asked to write a check to begin with. It was a place where I had a hand that reached out to help first. And then secondly, I knew that in terms of the financials, it would be worked out as in proportion to where I was. This is a no-risk place. It's a safe place. And you'll find that safe place that allows you to rediscover, rebuild, to grow, and to ultimately transform and get back to where you want to be, and then get on to where you hope to be.
We did find hope because our marriage was about as dark, as one could get. We needed help. We needed someone to guide us. And coming to the Refuge Center was that help and that hope. I feel like that we have been given the tools now that we can deal with situations so much better and work through them quickly and not let them linger.
We'd been married for 41 years, and a lot of ways that we could have justified just splitting up. I didn't want that for either one of us. So we worked hard.
And I think we're better friends now than we ever have been.
So it was July, 7 months later, and Ken Core, who's our congregational care minister there, called me into his office and said he thought it was time for me to explore the possibility of meeting with someone. He told me about the Refuge Center and what a great work it's doing, and he wanted me to go there, and he wanted me to see Amy Alexander. So I didn't fight it. There in that office, under her guidance, I cried real tears. It's the first time after Larry's death that I had. And that began a process of healing.
I would say that hope grows at Refuge because God is doing amazing work here, and He is healing people through all the passionate, caring people He's placed here.
Hope grows at Refuge because people care.
It's not a shame to go to counseling. It's not anything to be afraid of. There is help that is available in so many loving ways. You're going to be okay, and you're not all alone.